My biggest question here is, how did he really get this into his playing? How long do you need to practice a lick to make it sound musical and really get it into your playing? Maybe you're like me and getting a bit frustrated about practicing licks, technical exercises, applying this to solos, compose phrases that just not comes out in your playing. I can already reveal to you now that this is never going to go away. But there are some great methods you can use to streamline the process and really get a steady flow in the learning process from starting out composing licks, practicing licks, playing the technical exercises, and getting all of this into your music that actually comes out when you're playing tunes.
If I heard a lick that I like, I'd steal it, and it would come out in some other weird, bizarre way a few months later. I found that it's usually 2 months.
Michael Brecker says here that the time from practicing a lick to it actually gets out into his playing is 2 months. This posed to be two questions. What is the process to really learn licks? And how do you get them out there into a musical working situation? Let's take this super simple bebop line. Looking into the line, it fits on the G7 chord. And one place where we have a lot of G7 chords is in the blues in G. So let's add it to the blues in G. I've added this lick to all the G7 chords in the blues, and this is a really great way to start, slow and easy. The sped up way through the process is this. Start practicing the lick thoroughly till you really know it in all octaves. Then write the lick into a tune where you can use it on the place you want to use it. And here is a great idea to memorize the lick so you can add it in your head. In this step you start imagining where the lick would be and play the lick in the place you want to play it without a beat. When you get a little bit further, you add a play along to that to hear the sounds of the chords on top of that lick you played. So make music. This is not music we're making here. This is just a reproduction of some scales on some chords. To get musical with the lick, you need to add it into different places of the bar to get flexible on it. And you also need to connect it to the next chord. And when you get into this, you're starting making music with the lick you have trained. Making music is about having the vocabulary to actually make music. And one of the most important things in this process is being flexible enough to add the licks wherever you want to add it, into the musical setting which you are playing at the moment. So first step is connecting the lick into different target notes. This is one of the parts of the process I really love the most, finding out where I can fit the lick. In the blues example, you need to know how to get the lick into that C7. Moving from the G7 into the C7. Start figuring out how you can get that lick into the different target notes of the C7. Here I'm going into the B flat of the C7. Here I'm hitting the G of the C7, the 5th. And here I'm going straight for the root of that C7. Of course, there are tons of ways connecting licks into target notes. In the lesson manual, I really want to help you with this. I made a lot of these exercises moving into the different target notes of the chords. So if you want to get into this method, get the lesson manual on Patreon. The link is in the description. We should not only be able to play the G7 into the C7, we should actually play the G7 into any chord. In the blues in bar 3 and 4, you have 2 times G7. Let's try to connect the G7 to itself, 2 times G7. Here I'm hitting that low D on the G7. And going in for the B, the 3rd of the G7. And this is really about how to find connecting lines, hitting the target notes you want to hit, and thus using the licks flexible. I just stated that to play the lick freely, you must play it in any setting. And you have now seen a lot of examples where I put a little phrase after the lick we have used. But of course you could add a lot of notes in front of the lick too. In this line you see that I'm using a D minor 7 chord in front of the lick. Try different arpeggios to see what arpeggios fit you and how you can add this into the lick. You see that I'm resolving to that F. But I'm not really concerned about what I'm resolving to at the moment, because this is about what I put in front of the lick. When I'm practicing anything, I really want to use my focus on that thing only. Mostly when I spread out my focus on more things, I get more sloppy on all the things. Here I'm putting this Coltrane phrase 1, 2, 3, 5 in front of the lick. And remember that music goes always, not only ascending. Here's a descending line into that lick. Later in the video I want to dig into more advanced chord settings. This will give you other target notes to hit, but this is later in the video. Like you hear in this example, I'm not so sure that Michael Brecker thinks about where he's putting his licks when he's playing.
Music for me is largely intuitive. I'm not a real intellectual kind of player. My mind doesn't work that way.
And what he says here, Michael Brecker is a very intuitive player, and I really think that we all need to be intuitive players. We need to know the material that well that it just comes out. when it comes out. We need to be able to fit the licks into any setting, any chord settings, anywhere we are, if it fits the music, of course. And again, this is why rhythm and timing is so important. Being able to play that little lick from different places in the bar is very, very important. Here start the lick from all the full beats in the bar. You need to be able to play the lick when it randomly pops into your head, meeting it where you did not expect to play the lick. Then you have to do it.
If I heard a lick that I like, I'd steal it, and it would come out in some other weird, bizarre way a few months later. I found that it's usually 2 months.
And this is exactly what Michael Brecker is talking about here. If you're not played it before, why would you play it now? So you need to practice it on the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4. When you suddenly need that lick on the 4th beat, and you do not know how it sounds, you did not practice it on the 4th beat, how is it going to come out? Being very creative with your practice is also changing the rhythm of the lick. Playing the lick from the off beats, for example. Try making this normal in your practice routine. Changing the beats where you start the lick, but also changing the length of some of the notes. I really do believe that Michael Brecker had superpowers, and one of his superpowers was being creative in his practice. He was amazingly creative in how he put stuff together, how he practiced it. This superpower made him able to apply it in any setting he was playing. When you see this chord scheme, you also see that there are many more chords than the G7. Try adding the lick to the new chords. Play it in new keys. Start easy with just the keys that you need. Now I'm playing on the blues, but try to play licks on the tunes you are playing right now. Get hardcore into the practice room and meticulously move the licks into different beats and different rhythms. Connect the licks into different chords and therefore use it in different keys. And this leads us into advanced lick practicing. When you got this far and have the lick in some different keys and you know how to apply it in different rhythms, you might wonder about how Michael Brecker did it. How did he get to sound like that? Well, he mixed it up. Michael Brecker would play the licks in any key, in any rhythm. Here I'm playing a D minor 11 chord up. I substituted the G7 for the D minor 11. Then I'm going into a D flat 7. The tritone substituted dominant into that C7, and on the D flat 7 and on the C7 I'm both playing the lick. Here you see I'm adding the lick in 3 keys, D7, D flat 7, the C7. I would really recommend you to check out all 12 keys when you are practicing licks, getting them playable in any key, any rhythm, and all over the instrument. I've added many more licks and many more phrases and many more technical exercises in the lesson manual on Patreon. Everything is of course added into all 12 keys in the lesson manual. Get it on Patreon, the link is in the description. I love getting inspired and Michael Brecker is one of my greatest heroes. You can find much more on Michael Brecker's practice in this video. Play music, have fun.